Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for joining this event. It's really for us to celebrate the life, legacy, and impact of Professor James K. Mitchell. He was an educator, researcher, leader, and mentor at UC Berkeley and Virginia Tech. It's really for us to remember him, what he has done for us, to us, and also think about him and then what we can do, something like what he has done, and you will hear about a lot of things that he has done for us. Also, I know some of the students or younger researchers who don't know Jim or Professor Mitchell. I hope you hear lots of stories about him and you get excited about geotechnical engineering. And that's the objective of today's event, is to get excited about what we're doing. We have a great program. As you can see, we have assembled a lot of people from his past PhD students as well as some of the co-workers. We'll go through subjects like fundamental soil behavior, environmental geotechnics, site characterization, soil improvement, geotechnical and earthquake engineering. Wow, it's about everything. And that's what he has done, and then gave us a pathway to go forward in these areas. We'll have a session about what he was an educator and how he was contributed to us, but also you'll see a session on beyond geotechnical engineering. And I'm so grateful for Mitchell's family and Holly to be here to present what he was and how he was as a family member. And then we have a closure, and then we'll have a dinner at the end. What I would like to do is to introduce Rick to start about the life of Jim Mitchell.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the introduction, Kenichi. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Rick Mitchell, and I'm the oldest of the 5 Mitchell kids, all of whom are here today. And on behalf of the UC Berkeley Geosystems program and the program organizers, Kenichi Soga, Rudy Bonaparte, Russell Green, and Christopher Baxter, did I leave anyone out? And everyone in the Geosystems group, I have the honor and the privilege of welcoming you to the memorial event for Professor James K. Mitchell. And as you know from the program and from Kenichi's opening remarks, the organizers have put together a terrific program that focuses on the themes of the fundamentals of soil behavior, environmental geotechnics, site characterizations, soil improvement, geotechnical earthquake engineering, and my father's influences within the geotechnical engineering community and outside of the profession. All areas where my and our father left his mark. And when I was asked to say a few words of welcome at this event, I decided on a short narrative with very few pictures about the guy known to me as Dad, Professor Dad, colleague Dad, and you mean he's your father, Dad? Because I'm doing this because I think it will provide some important context to help weigh my father's legacy as an educator, as a researcher, as a leader, and as a mentor at UC Berkeley, at Virginia Tech, and later in retirement. And to do this, I'm going to start in the early 1950s, in my father's first exposure to engineering at Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute, when, as legend has it, he switched his major from chemistry to civil engineering to take advantage of the transportation offered by a roommate who had a car. Fortunate for all of us. Coincidentally, this was about the time that he and my mom met and got married. And this turns out to be fortuitous. Not only for the selfish reason that my future would have been in doubt had this not happened. But because our mom was an artist, and one of her very first sketches shows my dad's ability to carry a heavy workload while simultaneously pursuing his hobbies and his vices of music, cards, tobacco, and adult beverages. Here's another sketch from my mom that shows the real reason he found the prospect of a career in civil engineering so appealing. Note the titles of the textbooks under his foot. Polygons and their use makes a certain amount of sense. How to Tan the Easy Way, Wine, Women, and Song, How to Survey and Drink Beer. Perhaps his career choice motives were a little less than pure. Anyway, these distractions aside, he graduated from Rensselaer with his degree in civil engineering in 1951 and from MIT with his master's and doctorate degrees in 1953 and 1956. And after a short stint in the Army and time overseas, time where he was in charge of blowing up a bridge if the Russians were to invade, he accepted a position at UC Berkeley, and the family, that by now included me and my sister Lori, decamped for California and his first real job at UC Berkeley. And as the 1950s ended, my dad had settled into Cal and was juggling work and a family that now totaled 5 with the addition of my brother Jimmy. In the 1960s, I knew little about what my father did, except that he taught people about dirt at UC Berkeley. And I very soon learned that it's not called dirt, it's called soil. He wrote a lot of reports. He traveled a lot. He spent quite a bit of time at his huge desk, and it was a big desk, with a yellow legal pad and a slide rule close at hand. In the later 1960s, I was quite aware that he was involved with the Apollo missions to the moon. Because really, what could have been cooler to an 8 to 14-year-old kid than to be able to brag to his friends that his dad was instrumental in sending a man to the moon? It wasn't until much later that I learned his thing was lunar soils, and that he was instrumental in developing the lunar soil penetrometer, the handle of which may or may not have been associated with Alan Shepard's famous 6-iron shot on Apollo 14. Well, except for being one small step below an actual astronaut, his work at the time still really didn't resonate with me. But what I do remember is that no matter how busy or harried he was with any number of consulting or university-related obligations, he walked through the door every evening at 6:15, not 6:14, not 6:16, but 6:15, to have a cocktail, invariably a gin and tonic, and dinner with his family before retiring to his study, where the door was literally never closed to any of us or our entourages. And I well remember his evening tutoring sessions with me and several friends that were struggling with chemistry, and his succinct and fundamentally correct description of Avogadro's number. It's really big. He enjoyed that evening gin and tonic to the end, though his choices of cocktail shakers at times could be a little bit suspect. During these years, and perhaps channeling his inner athlete, he had time to coach my Little League team and to convince me that my future lay with the tools of ignorance. He also had the time to teach me and my brothers and sister, who now numbered 5, how to read and play music. And it was in the late 1960s and the early 1970s that the Mitchell Family Ensemble came into being. And like many, many great groups of this era, we ultimately disbanded over creative differences. Notwithstanding his busy schedule, our dad taught us how to whittle and how to fish, how to backpack and how to cook, how to swim and how to work some more, and how to work some more. Perhaps my father's favorite pastime wasn't painting, but it wasn't all work. He and my mother made sure that we all experienced their passion for camping and for outdoor activities through many family activities and by teaching all of us to ski. And in the interest of full disclosure, that is in fact James K. Mitchell right there, but it's his namesake, James K. Mitchell II, who is sitting at the table right there. My dad was a Boy Scout as a child, and he found the time to volunteer as a Scoutmaster when he had kids of his own. And through his example, guidance, and the occasional bribe, all 1, 2, 3, and 4 of us achieved the rank of Eagle Scout. And just pause for a second, because I don't want to give my sister, who is here, short shrift. She achieved the highest possible level you can get in Girl Scouts as well. As I grew older, I relied on my father more and more for advice and guidance on many subjects, such as how to dress for that important occasion. And at this point in the narrative, it's worth pausing to note that while Dad was being anything but an absentee father, he was also modestly and peripherally involved in teaching in the profession. For example, between the late 1950s and the early 1980s, teacher and professional Dad authored roughly 226 publications. And I checked, they were different publications. They weren't the same publication written 266 times, many of which are seminal in the field and advance the practice of geotechnical engineering. As we just saw, he was intimately involved with the Apollo missions to the moon. He wrote a book. He gave innumerable special presentations and keynotes. He served on consulting boards and commissions and was elected to the National Academy of Sciences. He would have had every opportunity to stop then. But the late 1990s and the 2000s brought a change of venue to Virginia Tech, where he wrote or contributed roughly 174 additional publications, gave 65 keynotes or invited lectures, prepared updates to his Fundamentals of Soil Behavior textbook, served on more consulting boards and commissions, and was elected to the National Academy of Science, which is a rare honor for an engineer. If my math is correct, this represents more than 400 papers and publications, not including books, videos, and special lectures. I find this staggering because I know what it takes to produce even one paper or prepare one talk. And I'll round out this brief intermission here by noting that the civil and geotechnical engineering professions, much like the Academy of Motion Pictures, recognizes achievements with annual awards. Between 1962 and 2010, Professional Dad won 17 of these awards, including one of them 4 different times and another one twice. So take that, Katharine Hepburn. Anyhow, even though my dad was an educator, we were never expected to bring home good grades, and there were no expectations that any of us would follow any particular career path, let alone go to college. We were, however, expected to put forth the effort necessary to do our best. Slacking off and half-baked efforts weren't tolerated. And although we were never pushed towards any educational or vocational path, he nefariously exposed us to his world in other, less direct ways. For me, it was the mid-1970s when he invited me on a trip down the Colorado River with a number of UC Berkeley graduate students. Being part of this adventure and hearing the surroundings described, discussed, and debated in terms of fluvial geomorphology, geology, slope stability, liquefaction, and toppling failures got me thinking that the geotechnical engineering profession could have some merit. Consequently, it probably wasn't a huge surprise that after college and a brief stint as an exploration geologist, I found myself as a grad student at UC Berkeley, and I had the opportunity to see and experience a side of my father that I really didn't know existed. I learned that Dad was now Professor Mitchell, and he had the reputation of being pretty good at whatever it was that he did. and it took me a little while to catch on. I learned that office hours were office hours, and the tutoring sessions that I experienced in high school at home were no longer appropriate because it wouldn't be fair, right, or ethical. A great personal disappointment to me. After grad school and as a practicing geologic engineer, I was extremely fortunate to be able to call on my dad and to work side by side with him on several projects, and also to call him from time to time with vexing technical issues. Although he usually, always actually, declined my generous offers of junior staff employment, he was always ready to help with a liquefaction question, expansive soil issue, or to opine on whether stone columns really work. And in his words, the jury is still out. Consistent with being a teacher, however, he never gave me the simple answer I was looking and hoping for. Instead, he suggested that maybe I should go back to my notes from his classes in Davis Hall, or perhaps revisit the information in Terzaghi and Peck, or the fundamentals of soil behavior. I highly, highly value the times we worked together on various projects and benefited from his knowledge, vision, and seemingly simple and straightforward approaches to understanding and solving a wide variety of geotechnical concerns. Through these experiences, I learned the truth of one of his axioms, that the amazing thing is not that soil mechanics works, but that it works as well as it does. And I saw that my father embodied Carl Terzaghi's observation that soil mechanics exists at the borderline between science and art. Unlike the 1960s, 1970s, and early 1980s, I now know very much what it is that my father did. I also know that his work in the areas of soil chemistry and behavior, compaction of clays, and soil chemical interactions, among others, informed and provided the very foundation for much of the exciting work being performed in the profession today, as I'm sure we will hear in the coming sessions. Before passing the microphone back to Kenichi Soga for some additional remarks, I'd like to share a poem that was written by my father's brother-in-law during a stormy morning the day after our father passed, that, in my view, captures the essence of Dad in 4 short stanzas. It says, "A tempest skirts our coast today. It's as if the gods feel the need to shake us. A giant has passed. The surrounding pines drop their cones in deference, seeds to nurture future generations. We too are endowed with the harvest of his wisdom so generously shared. He sails on, and we are thankful for our tangential encounters." I know that many here are thankful for those tangential encounters with my father. For example, here are but a few of the kind words I received from former students and colleagues. He taught me my first geotechnical class, and I credit him as being the reason I became a geotech. His teaching style was so clear, and he conveyed his passion for geotechnical engineering so well that it rubbed off on his students. Glad to have taken courses from him. Glad to have gotten his signature on my thesis. Glad to have been his colleague, although for too short a time. Glad to have worked with him. Glad to have spent time chatting and learning from him. Glad, glad, glad. And you know how much each of us loved your dad. The superlative adjectives that have been used in his many introductions and award commendations just don't express how special he was, especially as a professor. Few professors are brilliant, practical, honest, and kind. Your father was all of these and more. I don't disagree. I would posit, however, that to me, he was an equally special father, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing what others here have to say today. Thank you.
Rick, thank you so much. When Jim passed away, Mitchell's family members gave me some of the things that he had from UC Berkeley's colleagues. And these are the plaques, and I brought it here today that his PhD students gave to him in 1994 when he moved to Virginia Tech. Also at that time, if some of our PhD students, former PhD students remember, we wrote a letter to him. And these letters were assembled, and then it's in the booklet over here. And again, this was passed back to UC Berkeley, and I brought it here. So for those who were his PhD students, have a look, and if you were not, have a look and what we thought about him at that time. And I remember, now I saw my things I wrote, and I still feel exactly the same way. Also, when he he retired from Virginia Tech, we also had a booklet, and also that booklet was given, now I pass it back to Russell Green, who is a professor at Virginia Tech. So please do have a look. I'll put it in front of over here. Whenever you have time, come over and have a look at these booklets. Obviously, these were the hand notes booklets, but then nowadays, and in this particular age, we like to create videos and perhaps YouTubes or all these things. And so we do have this testimonial recording sessions between 12:30 and 6:30. The room is over this way. Demetrius? Yeah, there's a room with a camera, and then if you can say some words about Professor Mitchell, that will be recorded, and then we accumulate, and then in addition to these letters that we have from the past, we will try to bring it together and pass it to you. So please do go to this session, and then I did create some, my colleague created some questions that you may want to have a look, but anything you want to say, please do say so in this particular recorded sessions. I just want to thank my colleagues and the others who really made this happen, and because of them, this really happened. And you can see my colleagues from the Geosystems group, in particular, Professor Mike Reamer really brought this particular venue over here and make it happen. Professor Zekos, who created audio, website, everything, that he's so great, and then he continues to be great, and then this is something that we did. Nick Siddar always said, do this, do that, and then I just followed because he has a great wisdom. I just want to thank Rudy because Rudy has suggested many things that I felt really important thing to make this successful, as well as my colleagues from the Virginia Tech or ex-Virginia Tech, Russell Green, who is here, and also Chris Baxter, who's there. So Russell, Chris, thank you so much. And finally, Rick, thanks for the introduction, but Rick also, we communicated a lot to make sure this particular event will be successful. Geosystems group is keep on growing, and then you can see this is the year that we had this year. And we have lots of students, about 30 master students, many PhD students, and we are like this. And we want to continue to be like this, so please do support us. 30 years ago, we were like this. And we were good. And if you see, Professor Mitchell is right over here. I do see young Nick Sitar. I do see a little bit younger me over here. I see Rodrigo. Dimitri. Chu. Salah. And I can't see very well. Christine. Mike. And of course, Professor Marino. Marino. And Mike, this is Mike. Yes. Is that right, Mike? And Professor Goodman, Professor Berkeley, and then Professor Leisber and Clarence Chan. It's about our students, future, and that's what Cal and Virginia Tech is about. We really want to continue this venture, and please support us. And that's why we want to have this James K. Mitchell graduate fellowship. We're trying to make it as an endowment, so it's going to go forever. and we want to reach it up to 150K. Our Geosystem group will contribute. You're already contributing because from the previous time we start to accumulate, and we do have lots of colleagues already participating in this. You're welcome to do more, and let's make it up to more than what we have so we can have this endowment that will create forever so we can support our PhD student, our master's students, and our colleagues for the next generation of geotechnical engineers. So I'm talking too much, so let's stop over here, and then we'll start session 1. So I'll invite Chris.